my number one concern is those newly credentialed BCBAs really need supervised experience when they first start out. And there are a lot of other professions where that's actually mandated, like mental health counselors. After you pass the exam, you got to work for 2 years to get supervised experience before you can do it. Now, there's a bad side of that too, because those folks then are working 3-4 jobs to get by, right? And having that, need to provide service at not what you're doing is what it's worth is problematic.
All right, guys, welcome back to Beyond the Science podcast. We are live here at the FABA conference celebrating the 45th annual FABA conference. It's kind of crazy to say all that every time I say it. It's been a long day. Joe, you coming in here?
I'm coming in with you.
Joe's coming in? Nah, don't do that. You see how he just interrupted that? Wait, what do you call it? Is that podcast crashing?
This how you enter into it? I love it.
I hope the camera, I hope you have a guy Joe just coming in like that. Like, talking about the hurricanes, because the Bills were in the hurricane.
No, talking about Carson Beck, because he's a Georgia guy. Joseph Adams.
What a welcoming. All right. I was going to ask you, how are you enjoying the conference?
Hey, I'm doing good. Carson is winning. Georgia's winning. Alabama's losing. I'm doing great.
Alabama's losing. Everybody's happy.
Wow. This podcast was actually going really well until he showed up. We have the honor of having Dr. Bill Ahearn on our show. I actually ran into you yesterday. Big fan of, everything that you're doing. Actually, when I lived in New England, that's when I kind of started hearing about the work. And I just ran into you in the hallway and I said, you want to come on the show? And he was gracious enough to give us some of his time. Director of Research at New England Center of Children, still adjunct faculty at Western New England University. And you've been doing some really good stuff. So thanks for joining us today. I'm talking to the show, guys.
Yeah.
So talk to us about your FABA experience so far. How's FABA been treating you?
So I'm really happy to come to FABA for a couple of reasons. One, my son moved to Fort Myers almost 2 years ago. So it gives me an excuse to come down and spend some time with him. Unfortunately, we're lifelong Dolphins fans, so we end up going to a Dolphins game, and that was not a fun game against the Bills last night or against the Patriots.
Penalty at the end was tough. 0-3 now.
0-3. Virtually eliminated from the playoffs. But anyway, nonetheless, we got a chance to go down, hang out together.
Yes.
And that was a lot of fun. But the FABA conference is really loaded with a lot of variety. It's, I'll be upfront with my bias. So I was part of the Babbitt Conference Planning Committee since 1997. And we really built that up from, less than 100 attendees to selling out to the point where we had to move from UMass Amherst to the DCU Center in Worcester. And I really am a supporter of Babbitt. I hope none of my Babbitt friends listen to this podcast, although I'm sure they will.
They definitely
but I really think FABA has gotten to the point where it is the best state regional conference out there. And there are so many dedicated behavior analysts in so many different areas that it's a lot of fun to come here and see what's going on and to learn just how much fraud has happened within the past year or so.
It's crazy still going on. A lot of presentations going on. But that's been a reoccurring thing. We had Bailey on earlier. Obviously he's a little biased because he was not a FABA, but he was talking about how even the ABAI, he's saying that FABA is like eclipsed that, and he's saying that FABA really is a place to be in terms of, and you feel that community sense here. You kind of get overwhelmed a little bit at ABAI. So I mean, my experience here has been just honestly nothing short of amazing. So I'd have to echo that. I kind of want to get into some things that you're doing at Next. So you led research in social skills, stereotypy, and feeding. What are you most excited about the work that you're doing, and also the work that you're seeing from others in the field right now?
Well, do you have a couple hours?
Yes.
So, just to sort of make it short, one of the things that has always been part of our integrated approach towards identifying the best practices for automatically reinforced repetitive behavior, the goals We may work a lot with kids with stereotypic behavior and other kind of repetitive behavior that's non-self-injurious. But we do that because we can conduct those experiments when a kid's not in crisis, and maybe that's going to inform us as to what the best practices are for working with automatically reinforced self-injurious behavior. And so we really started that line of work in the year 2000. And most people think about this study we published in 2007 on response interruption and redirection, but that's actually the second publication. The first one was using competing stimulus assessments to identify preferred activities that a kid would play with for at least 5 minutes, so that we could then put together a picture activity schedule where they would independently engage in leisure skills for a period of time. So it's really on what do we do for any problem behavior? Well, we look for alternative behavior, and it's not always clear with automatically reinforced behavior what you should be doing.
Yes.
But something, right? And then if you need to, you bring in some way of dampening the reinforcing, ness of the repetitive behavior. So what I'm most excited about was we just completed a project working with higher level repetitive behavior. And this one, we're working with kids with arranging and ordering. So they move stuff around in the environment, and it's not a problem if they, are like an interior decorator, or if their final product of what they're doing is, manageable. But oftentimes when it comes to be problematic, it's because they're creating an unsafe environment, or they're doing something that one of the other students is not happy about. Like we had this one kid that presented with arranging and ordering, and part of it was taking all of his roommate's clothes and stuffing them under the bed. And so, of course, the roommate's not too happy with that. So there was a study published in 2012 by Nicole Rodriguez, who did her doctoral work at Western New England with Rachel Thompson. And they did this, the very first functional analysis to treatment for arranging and ordering. And they found that all the kids had automatically reinforced arranging and ordering. We learned that that's not always the case. But for every kid in that study, they needed to have some form of response blocking or blocking the final product of the arranging and ordering. And so it worked. But a couple of those kids were really not happy when you were not letting them do that. So, given the technology that was available to those researchers at that time, and I was on Nicole's dissertation committee. So I thought it was a great study when it's happening. I thought it was a great study when it's finished. Think it's a great study now. But what's the next study, right? And so what we were interested in doing is replicating that, but using the augmented competing stimulus assessment developed by Hagopian and colleagues at the Kennedy Krieger Institute to identify not just effective competing stimuli, but also the procedural enhancements that are necessary to maintain a treatment effect. So we did that with every kid with arranging and ordering. And for those kids that we needed to use the response blocking plus prompted engagement level of the ACSA, we were able to fade that out before we got it into the treatment environment. And that's just been accepted into JABA with minor revision.
Wow, that's nice. I mean, and you have, so many articles published.
By the way, that's Riley Fergus's study. I should have mentioned.
Oh, okay.
The student.
Gotta throw the plug. Now, I was saying you have so much research that's been published, and then you talked about the first one, which I didn't even know about. By the way, everybody knows about the second one you talked about, because that's the one that I found you on. What are you most proud of right now? Maybe not even in your literature, just in your career. What's the most thing that you say that this is what kind of my legacy that I'm proud of?
So, now I'm gonna take you genuinely at what you mean with that, but I need to sort of start off with I'm kind of uncomfortable with proud as an emotion personally. For me. Yeah. Like I'm proud of my kids, proud of my students. I'm proud of the students at the New England centers. They're making progress and, being engaged in the community and gaining more and more independence. But I have to say that the thing that has been most gratifying over the years is to watch the growth of the number of service providers that can go out there and be good, sound, professional practitioners. And part of what has led me to that being the one thing that I sort of pick. As I was involved in Babbitt's efforts to get licensure in Massachusetts, first opposing it because it was not well written, and then supporting it once everybody came together and decided what should be there. And I'm the chair of the licensing board. I probably shouldn't have you guys give the date because the licensing board meeting was today.
Somebody's playing hooky.
That's okay. I let them know I was playing.
I have a question for you. So you talk about, what you're most grateful for is, being able to come in contact with great, up and coming providers or analysts and things like that. From your experience, if you're seeing a kind of newer analyst kind of get started, what would be the top 2 or 3 characteristics that you can immediately identify that will let you know, like, oh, this one is going to be pretty solid?
Man, I wish I could make that prediction early on. Sort of do my best to try to. So my role as the director of research at the New England Center is partly to be supporting staff in gaining the training and competencies to become behavior analysts. So I actually just take the first 6 people that apply to work with me to fill up those slots. There's some intentionality to not necessarily filling those slots just with existing New England Center employees. We have plenty of faculty. I'll take some that ask me early on, but they tend to apply later. So I don't reserve anything for those that are existing staff, but I try to bring in people that are going to be new.
Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm. And in the past, probably, I want to say, let's see. So about 4 years, we've been pretty successful in bringing in a lot of folks internationally. Mm-hmm. So I go in early as soon as an application comes in. If I'm one of the named, potential advisors, and whoever's ahead of me in that list has an opportunity or they're not taking a student, I reach out right away so that we can get the ball rolling quickly for those that are coming in internationally. And so last year in our cohort, I accepted somebody from Kenya, I accepted somebody from China, and I knew that I needed to get them I will advise you as early as possible, because the process of then getting the visa and going through all of the things that Western New England needs them to do, and then the New England Center as well. You want to make sure that we get those folks in. Mm-hmm. And it's been a lot of fun bringing in international students because they bring a different level of enthusiasm. Yeah. And, they're a little bit more invested in it. And it really brings everybody in the cohort up to have those folks that really want.
It's awesome.
To be taking that back, home.
Yeah, awesome. Guys, we're live here at the FABA conference with Dr. Bill Ahearn. He's given us some of his time. I'm assuming you're going to the social tonight.
Probably. I didn't think about that. I haven't looked at those where the people I'm hanging out with are going, but that's probably one of them.
That's what I'm curious. Now you've been around for a while. You've seen a lot. Have a lot of wisdom. But this is a good thing because our field is growing so fast. Yeah. I mean, I think over 50% of probably even bigger than that, our current credentials have been in the field for less than 5 years.
I know.
Which is a crazy stat.
That is.
Do you have any concerns right now with where our field is going, with anything that you're seeing that maybe you would want some changes to be made with kind of the trajectory of our field?
Well, I'm optimistic. We're behavior analysts. We have that core belief that behavior is a product of environmental circumstances. That ultimately leads us to being focused in ways that are, atypical. We don't, if a kid's having difficulties, we don't blame the child. We blame the environments and look to fix things. So I believe that behavior analysis will, as long as those core values persist, will be okay. But my number one concern is those newly credentialed BCBAs really need supervised experience when they first start out. And there are a lot of other professions where that's actually mandated, like mental health counselors. After you pass the exam, you got to work for 2 years to get supervised experience before you can do it. Now, there's a bad side of that too, because those folks then are working 3-4 jobs to get by, right? And having that, need to provide service at not what you're doing is what it's worth is problematic, but it would help, and even if we can't mandate it, which we most likely can't because of that, there's too much demand for the services and not enough people out there to give it, that it would be a good strategy for companies out there to be thinking about how am I going to build in supervision so that I can take those folks that I'm bringing in that are new and appropriately support them so that they can become the best behavior analysts that they can be. And if you're going to do that, they're probably going to be able to do their job better, retain more staff, and it works out for everybody. So that's my main concern. People need help. They don't know what to do until they're out there doing it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's interesting because we always talk about like supervision, and then we talk about mentorship. And just to your point, Bill, there's not enough supervisors and mentors out there to be even to provide that, because the numbers are growing so vastly. So it's like, how do we even meet that demand to be able to have that supervision and mentorship with the rate in which that we're growing? I think that's the real challenge of what people are talking about now.
How do you think the new RBT requirement is going to impact our quality of services for whether it's clinical or at home?
I can't think that it can only improve it. Although we work in a school environment, so our staff, when they come in, are RBT equivalents, and they can get an RBT, but it's something that's voluntary. It's not mandated, and it's already the case that there are a lot of service providers that go way above and beyond those minimal criteria. But anything that's going to make it such that we're better preparing those people that are going to get out there. And I'm hopeful that will translate into better outcomes.
I've heard kind of back and forth with it. I think to kind of expand on your point, right, it's only going to be better, right? Give them more access to resources, education, opportunities to network with other professionals, like-minded individuals. But then on the flip side, I hear some, unfortunate, hey, like this is going to just extra stuff on top of extra stuff. And so, just kind of wanted to kind of pick your brain and see kind of where you kind of landed on that. But, that makes sense of kind of what you said.
I'm old enough where I was working as a behavior analyst before there was a BCBA. And so I took the test, I think the second time it was offered nationally. And there were a lot of older behavior analysts that were resistant to becoming BCBAs. Oh, I don't need that BCBA. I'm qualified to do what I'm doing. And it's really more important to support the field, right, to come up with that common credential. And then there were a lot of people that ended up getting left out because they didn't do that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, Dr. Bill, I want to pick your brain on post-COVID generation of students. And you've done a lot of research with social skills. Can you tell us the need for social skills, especially with the younger population, and why potentially our field doesn't engage in a lot of that?
So you say that behavior analysts are lacking in social skills. I was making clear who said it first. No. I'll say it second.
Well, social skills training, yes. I do think we are lacking in that. And I just think that the insurance model just puts a priority on skills acquisition on one-to-one RBT, BCBA, but the insurance model doesn't put the priority on social skills groups. So therefore, we just don't do it. But you get into a school setting, pre-K, kindergarten, you see all these learners, these early learners that are struggling. And these are the same learners that academically, when they get to third and fourth grade, now they're a grade or two behind because, maybe some pre-attending social skills that they didn't get.
Yeah.
But our field doesn't put the priority on that. So based on the extensive research that you've done, can you touch on that? Like why and the need for it?
Well, At some level, the need is obvious, right? So we're already a school environment. However, the vast majority of the individuals we have severe, challenging behavior. That wasn't the case when I first started in 1996. But now that's sort of the reality. How do we, I think about it the same way that I think of moving into like secondary education and into adulthood. We need to work on those transition skills, right? To be as independent as possible in the community. And that's the case from like kindergarten to grade 1 to grade 2 to grade 3. And especially when you get into that, 5th, 6th grade into middle school, if those social skills haven't really developed, then that student is going to sort of be shut out of many, many opportunities. So a focus on that has to be balanced with, are they ready? But when they're ready, how do we then, make constraints that we're placing on the environment ourselves, like being 1-to-1, 1-to-2, even 1-to-3 is not what you're going to get in the classroom. So there needs to be a planful beginning of all of those skills, right? Starting with, I know it's a dirty word. Some people think eye contact isn't something we should target, but it's, I think that's more misunderstood than it is. You shouldn't be targeting eye contact. Eye contact is actually a discriminative response that's indicative that something's important in the environment. So of course you should be working on, it's more eye gaze than eye contact. What am I looking at? And, the student that I'm working with attends to the materials, or whatever interesting event in the environment that I am. So we can then start with that volley of establishing the conversation skills, and then bringing in peers is something that has to be part of that. And building that type of curriculum is something that, honestly, I don't work as much when the kids are doing well and able to get out there. Yeah. I'm with the ones that, we're trying to teach them to talk and they don't make any sounds. Or, we can't get them to sit down and attend to a learning trial or to the teacher in front of them, and establishing from those early pieces. But when it comes to social skills, they're all, in some sense, starting with what is a prerequisite and then moving from whatever that thing is. So let's say, it's looking in the direction of the person that said something to you and responding. That's the prerequisite. Okay, so what happens next? It's all a matter of transferring stimulus control into modifications in the environment that are more and more like the natural environment. One of the things that is critical when it comes to social skills, though, is that we can't really be relying on tokens, right? We shouldn't be, obviously not direct edibles. Those need to go away, and we need to be maintaining that with social consequences that are going to be like the ones they're meeting in the natural environment.
Yeah.
And we thought, I was working with one of my colleagues, Becky McDonald, who's now retired, but she's worked primarily with the littlest kids. We were trying to identify how could we be more effective in teaching them to initiate joint attention, right? So that social interaction is something that they, usually you can get them to readily respond, especially if you've got something of value to them, but to have that initiation is oftentimes a big hurdle. But once you're conceptualizing it, you're thinking about, okay, so how are we going to do it? How are we going to touch that with reinforcement? So we had all the procedures for training it, but wanted to individualize the social stimuli that we're using in the teaching. So we developed an assessment. So we were looking at things like high fives, tickles, head rubs. These are little kids, so not adolescents. And using those then as the stimuli. And I can remember this one kid, I always talk about this in certain contexts. We're using verbal praise. And now I thought, and was wrong again, that verbal praise would be not really as reinforcing as maybe some of the other things, like a high five or a pat on the back. But this one kid, when we were using praise statements at the end of the little session that we had with him, he turns to the teacher and he goes, "Can you just say wowee?"
Didn't surprise me either.
Wowee is what I say every time Carson throws a touchdown. Wowee is what I say.
I want to see Mark Fletcher bust him into the end zone.
I'll get down with that. All right, let's move to our rapid fire questions. All right, Bill, so we're going to ask you questions and you have 5 seconds to answer. You just got to answer to the best of your ability. Okay?
I'll do my best.
All right. Greatest Miami Hurricane of all time?
Ooh.
Football player.
I'm picking Ed Reed.
Okay, that's solid. Who contributed? He's a Hall of Fame?
Not Ray.
Ed Reed was better. Better at his
This is not a debate. This is Bill's answer.
Ray Lewis is someone you can argue.
Yes.
This is Bill's list. Leave it alone.
You're right.
Who contributed more to those Pats championships? Was it Tom Brady?
It was Brady, but I hate the Patriots.
Oh, you hate the Pats. What's your team?
The Dolphins.
Oh, man. Yeah, I forgot the Dolphins. Listen,
Damn.
I can't hate because Tua's from Bama and that's my quarterback, but they're going to probably bench Tua.
Time to move on from Tua.
Yeah, Tua's done.
Did you see him last night?
Unfortunately, yes.
146 yards. It's crazy.
Last one. If you could have a sit-down dinner with anybody outside of ABA right now, who's most intriguing to you that you would like to pick their brain?
Living or dead?
Both.
Oh, both. So it's 5 seconds and I can pretend I'm answering it. I think I would want to have dinner with B.F. Skinner.
Ooh, who doesn't want to have dinner
Right?
with B.F. Skinner?
But if you're asking me for a backup plan, Beth Solzer-Azaroff did all this great work with youth. And established Babbitt originally, UMass Amherst. I kind of think of her as the mother of applied behavior analysis, and I'd really like to have time to sit down and pick her brain.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. They were both BAs that he mentioned too. This guy's. I'm curious though, if Skinner was still with us today, because I'm a Skinner junkie. I'm not gonna hold you. Like I just love everything Skinner. What would you think? How do you think he would feel about, he had a vision for what he wanted this field to be like. He wrote many books on it from, Beyond Freedom and everything. God wrote Verbal Behavior that half the people don't read, but you know what I mean? It's an amazing book. What do you think?
And everyone that reads it doesn't understand.
No, nobody understands. What do you think he would think right now? Do you think he'd be happy with where we are as a field? Like, what do you think he would say?
Well, there's this, sort of famous saying that, can't remember what conference it was. It might have been FABA, it might have been EPA, where he refers to the people gathered as, we happy few. Right? I think he would be like taken aback by just how large the field has become, right? And how much impact behavior analysts have out there. So I think
that's true.
Are there problems? Oh, yeah, we know all the problems. But I can't imagine that it would be anything other than thinking it was a good thing.
The man was so brilliant. I mean, he was just before his time. Anytime I read anything, I try to understand him best I could, but he's probably my favorite. In terms of behavior analytics stuff, he's probably my go-to guy. Like that's how big skin. I'm sure most people though, but BF is my BF in that way too. So I would love to have dinner with him, but he probably just wowed me away with his knowledge. I mean, you go back on YouTube and you just watch how he would talk about behavior. I was like, man, this guy was just brilliant.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the Skinner-Rogers debate?
I have.
Carl Rogers and Skinner. Look that one up. And one of the things that I found odd, right, as to, so Carl Rogers, the, person-centered planning, guy who is the phenomenologist. He establishes a particular way of, non-directive counseling that sort of permeates to today, but more for liability purposes, I think, and effectiveness. Had an exchange in a symposium with Skinner where they were sort of opposing views. And Skinner delivered his Behaviorism at 50, which you're a Skinner junkie. I'm sure you've read Behaviorism at 50, which is really the, statement of his radical behaviorism years down the road from the operational analysis of psychological terms. So here he is being told that behaviorism is dead, and Rogers is, saying you can't study these variables that we think are really important. And they ended up having these debates together because it seemed like they recognized that they both want the same thing. They want the world to be a better place. They may not agree about how to get there or, what behavior is, but they engaged in meaningful dialogue, and in meaningful dialogue in a way that was, accepting that which they had in common rather than pointing up those things that were differences.
Yeah.
So take a look at that one. That's why I want time to talk to Skinner. I would like to hear what he has to say about those things that were controversial. I want to hear how we would respond to Noam Chomsky, who I can tell you is a terrible tipper because my son was working at Legal Seafood near MIT, and they left a little tiny tip.
Sounds like civil discourse.
Sounds like
civil discourse. Yeah,
I have a question.
Sure,
it's juggling in my head for a little bit, so I'm gonna try to ask it the best way that I can. But it's more of just like a thought-provoking question, and we can answer it however way that we can. But with the technology that we have today in 2025 across within the behavior analysis community, medical, right, anything that we have that's been advanced to this level. If Skinner had access to what we have today during his prime, do you still think, or what are your thoughts on if he would have defined the concepts and how he defined operant behavior or whatever will still be the same as they were then, or would they be a little bit tweaked or different?
Well, I kind of think Skinner would get into technology because he developed technology that didn't exist to isolate, responding and consequences to watch. What happens to that. But, do I think that maybe he would define the operant and respondent different because it's kind of backwards, right? It's the operant that we know more about. And respondent is kind of, we don't know what kind of conditioning is going to happen there. And other things like timing and, routines that are, driven by other forces like, the sun, the moon, and so forth are, part of what is kind of the lesser known. Yeah. So would things be different? They might be. My guess is he would have done a lot more work because we've been able to get there quicker.
Yeah. Awesome, man. This has been awesome, and I could probably do this for about 30 more minutes. But I know I said I only give you 20, 30 minutes, but I'm just fascinated. I just wanted to personally thank you, just for all the work that you've done. Again, when I was walking by, I just feel like I was like, man, I'm one of those fans, just admiring. No, seriously, the work that you've done, the contributions to our field that you've added. So thank you a lot, just for the work that you've done. And I speak for all of us when I say, for when those contributions like that are made, like I'm contributing in my own way, And so when I see people that are making an impact and in that way, I'm always inspired. So I've been inspired by, the work that you've done. And that's why when I saw you, I was probably like a kid at a candy store trying to shake your hand. Because that's just, when I see people doing meaningful stuff like that, I just kind of I'm just appreciative. So thank you. I'm
inspired by all the behavior analysts out there. And one of the things that I think is starting to get lost in this, one-upmanship of everybody trying to say they're the greatest and you can only do it my way, is that ABA is all of us, right? And it takes all of us to make it better.
Yeah.
So we should be arm in arm, right? Supporting everybody out there who's a behavior analyst. So I'm happy to talk to anybody that's jazzed by behavior analysis the way that I am. So it was my pleasure.
Yeah, I really love it. If people want to learn more about the work that you do, want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
I'm at the New England Center for Children. You can Google search our work, or you could send me an email at bahearn@necc.org. I generally respond within a week to anything that isn't spam email.
I've got an off-air question for you.
Okay. Well, guys, thank you. I think we're wrapping up today. Today was a fun day full of a lot of interviews and just some insightful discussion. Thank you, FABA, again, for letting us be the official podcast partner. Thank you, Bill, for joining us, and we will be back tomorrow with some final interviews. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you guys then.